Albert Einstein, in his infinite wisdom, once said, "The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know." And this has never been more true. Despite great advancements in mankind's knowledge in recent years, some of our greatest questions remain unanswered. Here are 7 of science's greatest unanswered questions. Be sure to let us know what you think of the video down in the comment section below. And let's jump in. First up, why is there stuff? Now this might sound like we're about to get philosophical right off the bat, but don't worry, this is still a science channel. Scientists have long puzzled over why there's anything in the universe. The stuff you're made of is matter, which has a counterpart called antimatter, differing only in its electrical charge. When they meet, they annihilate each other in a flash of energy, and both disappear. Our best theory suggests that the Big Bang created equal amounts of the two, meaning all matter should have since encountered its antimatter counterpart, deleting them both, and leaving the universe awash with only energy. It seems that in the moments after the Big Bang, that for every 10 billion antimatter particles, there were 10 billion and 1 matter particles. The matter and antimatter annihilated the 10 billion, and left us with the 1. Clearly nature has a subtle bias for matter, otherwise you wouldn't exist. Researchers are sifting through data from experiments like the Large Hadron Collider, trying to understand why that is. Number 2. Why does time seem to flow only in one direction? Since Einstein, physicists have thought of space and time as forming a 4-dimensional structure known as space-time. But space differs from time in some very fundamental ways. In space, you're free to move around as you wish, in the X, Y, and Z directions. But when it comes to time, we're stuck. We grow older, not younger. And we remember the past, but not the future. Time, unlike space, seems to have a preferred direction that physicists call the arrow of time. Some physicists suspect that the second law of thermodynamics provides us a clue. It states that the entropy of a physical system, roughly the amount of disorder, rises over time. And physicists think this increase is what gives time its direction. For example, a broken teacup has more entropy than an intact one. And sure enough, smashed teacups always seem to exist after an intact one, and never before. Entropy may be rising now because it was lower earlier. But why was it so low to begin with? Was the entropy of the universe unusually low 14 billion years ago when the Big Bang brought it into existence? Many physicists consider this the missing piece of the puzzle. If we can explain why the early universe had a low entropy, then the rest would follow naturally. But still, others think the deeper part of the question is, why is time so different from space? It's one of those things that's weird to think about at first. Of course, time is different from the way you can walk around your room, but it's much more confusing to explain from a physics perspective. For now, this remains unanswered. Next up, the question we've all asked ourselves looking up at the night sky. Are we alone in the universe? For decades, astronomers have been scouring the universe for places where watery worlds might have given rise to life. From Europa and Mars in our solar system to planets light years away. Radio telescopes have been eavesdropping on the heavens, but have fallen on deaf ears. And even today, astronomers are able to scan the atmospheres of distant worlds, looking for the telltale gas signatures that could hint at the presence of life. Of course, the only way to get a definitive answer to a question like this is to actually find alien life. But with all this searching, we still haven't found any. For decades, the Fermi paradox has mocked us with its simplicity. In the 1950s, Fermi realized that any civilization with a modest amount of rocket technology and an immodest amount of imperial incentive could rapidly colonize the entire galaxy. Within 10 million years, every star system could be brought under the wing of the empire. Now 10 million years may sound like a long time, but it's really a split second compared to the 13.5 billion year age of the galaxy. The crux of the Fermi paradox is that, with billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy, there are bound to be millions of Earth-like planets, and many millions, if not billions of years older than ours. And if some gave rise to advanced civilizations that developed interstellar travel, even at the slow pace humans currently envision interstellar travel, the Milky Way should have been completely colonized long ago. But the paradox is that, despite statistics telling us there should be heaps of intergalactic civilizations roaming the galaxy, we don't see any. There are a few straightforward possible answers to this paradox. The first is that intelligent life is incredibly rare, and we're one of, if not the only ones. The second, that the lifetime of such civilizations is short, and the rise of intelligent life naturally leads to its own destruction. In today's world, it's easy to see how this could be the case. Thousands of nuclear-powered rockets are pointed not outward towards the stars, but inward towards ourselves. Superbugs have risen in prominence, and the connectedness of mankind has allowed diseases to spread far and fast. It's possible that the prerequisites of an intergalactic civilization naturally lead to their own destruction. As a side note, if one of these two is the answer, we should hope it's the first one, because if it's the second, it means we're most likely doomed. And the third and final simple solution is that they exist, but for some reason we don't see them. 200 years ago, if a friendly alien sent us a radio message, we would have no way of detecting it. Today, we scour the stars, looking for electromagnetic waves like radio waves or gamma rays that could come from far-off civilizations. But perhaps alien technology uses principles that we don't understand yet, and therefore we haven't figured out how to detect. Or maybe there's some prime directive type rule in the intergalactic government preventing aliens from making contact with us. Turning from the stars to the spreadsheets, what's so weird about prime numbers? The fact that you can shop safely on the internet is thanks to prime numbers, those digits that can only be divided by themselves and 1. Public key encryption, the heartbeat of internet commerce, uses prime numbers to fashion keys capable of locking away your sensitive information from prying eyes. And yet, despite their fundamental importance to our everyday lives, the primes remain an enigma. An apparent pattern within them, the Riemann hypothesis, has tantalized some of the brightest minds in mathematics for centuries. However, as of yet, no one has been able to figure out how to efficiently discover new prime numbers. Doing so may just break the internet. And speaking of the internet, can computers keep getting faster? Our tablets and smartphones are mini computers that contain more computing power than what the astronauts took to the moon in 1969. Moore's law tells us that the number of transistors on a microchip should double about every 2 years. But if we want to keep on increasing the amount of computing power we carry around with us, how are we going to do that? And in recent years, computer engineers have struggled to live up to Moore's expectations, as modern transistors are getting to be so small that quantum physics has started coming into play. If transistors are made any smaller, electrons could start quantum tunneling through the incredibly thin switches meant to hold them back. As engineers have struggled to put transistors any closer together, they're now looking into new materials, software improvements, and entirely new systems like quantum computing to pick up the slack. But the question remains, how long can Moore's law be maintained? Number 6. What is consciousness? We're still not really sure. We know that it has to do with different brain regions networked together, rather than any single part of the brain. The thinking goes that if we can figure out which parts of the brain are involved and how the neural circuitry works, we'll be able to figure out how consciousness emerges. The harder, more philosophical question is why anything should be conscious in the first place. A good suggestion is that by integrating and processing lots of information, we can do more than focus on what's currently in front of us and imagine future scenarios. Things like, what would happen if I hunted that lion with a spear instead of my bare hands? And this ability to imagine the future is a clear advantage to help us adapt and survive. But even though we can understand the importance of consciousness, we still don't understand how it emerges. Last up, lucky number 7. Can we find a unified theory of physics? We now have 2 overarching theories to explain just about every physical phenomenon: Einstein's theory of general relativity and quantum mechanics. The former is good at explaining the motion of everything from golf balls to galaxies, and quantum mechanics is equally impressive in its own domain, the realm of atoms and subatomic particles. The trouble is, the 2 theories describe our world in very different terms. In quantum mechanics, events unfold against a fixed backdrop of spacetime, while in general relativity, spacetime itself is flexible. And we don't understand how the 2 theories would come together, but that hasn't stopped people from trying. String theory, which pictures matter as made up of tiny vibrating strings or loops of energy, has been touted as the best bet for producing a unified theory of physics. But some physicists prefer other theories, like M theory, loop quantum gravity, and a few others. Each approach has enjoyed some success. Techniques developed by string theorists in particular are proving useful for tackling certain difficult physics problems, but none of these have been tested experimentally. For now, the long-sought theory of everything continues to elude us. If you're tired of all the things we don't know, try learning about what we do know with this video on the biggest scientific discoveries from the last year. Have a great day, and remember, there's always more to learn.